What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So you guys have been spamming me with this specific video. Somebody tried to take out a US fighter jet, which is quite mad. It apparently happened not too long ago. It's quite recent as well. And I want to know what the retaliation is for
We
trying to
both
take out
want to know
a
what the retaliation is.
fighter jet.
Yeah.
It's quite mad, isn't it? So guys, before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. 70k is around the corner. We are round the corner, guys. Let's do it.
At 5:23 p.m. local time, a U.S. Air Force F-16 from the 421st Fighter Squadron was providing top cover for a U.S. naval task force as it steamed along the coast of Yemen. While the patrol had been relatively quiet so far, this would all change in a matter of seconds. Unknown to the F-16 pilot, a Houthi SA battery near Hodeidah had the aircraft in its sights and let loose a missile. With a 23-kilometer maximum effective range and a top speed of 2.8 times the speed of sound, the pilot has just seconds to react. Thankfully, the F-16 comes equipped with a variety of electronic countermeasures that turn this deadly missile into a harmless pea shooter.
How?
Located on the aircraft's nose is its AN/APG-83 radar, which serves as its first line of defense against the Houthi missile attack. After detecting the SA-6 at a range of 42 kilometers, the pilot began a steep dive to take the aircraft from 30,000 feet to 15,000 feet. This maneuver is necessary because the SA-6 can track its target.
Oh.
The SA-6 is what's known as a semi-active missile. This means that Houthi ground radars must illuminate the target with enough energy to create a fire control situation. Once airborne, the SA-6 receives this fire control data as it screams towards the target. Once it gets close, its internal seeker on its warhead activates to ping for the F-16 in its final few seconds of flight.
My God,
by performing this steep dive, the pilot hoped to break the fire control solution of the incoming SA-6, but it wasn't enough. With the radar's ability to scan for fighter-sized targets with a 5-meter squared radar cross-section up to 470 kilometers, the radar was able to spot more incoming SA-6 missiles. The pilot continued evasive maneuvers with just 18 seconds to react to this barrage.
Life and death.
However, these erratic turns wreaked havoc on the radar's ability to track targets. Although the system can track up to 20 targets at once, the radar's effectiveness in seeing targets at 60 degrees off bore sight decreases to just 47%. With all
he or she, pilot, must have been absolutely terrified. I don't know if that's actual footage of the actual pilot. If it is, because sometimes the AI uses like different videos in it, footage, but in a real life situation, you got 3 or 4 missiles coming at you from different directions. Obviously, you're trained and you have to be calm and collected, but the adrenaline and what you must be feeling after is going to be different.
You know what, as well? Their thinking needs to be quick as well. If it was me, I would not make it to be a pilot. I think very slow.
You do that. That's one of her downfalls. She's a slow thinker. She's good. When she gets the answer, she's solid, but it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, so I asked that. I'm like, But yeah, like you have to think on the spot and you have to be very analytical.
Very. And situation awareness.
All the erratic turns the pilot is making, the F-16 is effectively blind to some of the incoming missiles. That's where its next system comes into play. If you look here at each pylon on the wings, you'll see this device. This is called the Terma Pylon Integrated Dispensing System, or PIDS. And it's the next step in breaking the chain of disengagement. While each system weighs 19 kilograms and decreases each F-16 loadout by 3%, this trade-off is well worth it because of what it can do. Equipped with 6 Hensoldt AAR-60 V2 ultraviolet sensors around it, each system provides 360 degrees of spherical coverage that can detect missile launches at ranges of up to 10 kilometers.
Wow.
These systems can deploy infrared flares and radio frequency chaff bundles. When the PIDS detected the incoming SA-6 missiles, it deployed 12 MJU-50B flares and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles that created a 1/2 kilometer IR-RF decoy cloud. However, this was not enough to shake the lock of the incoming missiles, so the pilot had one last option. Located here on the belly of the aircraft is an AN/ALQ-184 jamming pod. The pod can jam threats across a 2 to 20 gigahertz range using digital RF memory technology. This is more than enough to counter the SA-6's 6 to 8 gigahertz fire control radar. As soon as the pilot kicked this on, the pod broke the incoming missile's connection with its ground control site.
Ooh.
This reduced the XA-6's accuracy by 70%, forcing the remaining missiles into a ballistic trajectory that flew harmlessly past the aircraft. However, despite this defeat, the Houthis were far from done today.
That's a prime example, though, of why the US need to spend so much on their military and technology, because that just saved the pilot's life. And it also meant they get their pilot back and the equipment back and the plane back.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? If their tech wasn't on thing, that pilot will be dead. So all that money spent, RIP to the pilot as well. Obviously, the life will be gone. The money spent training that pilot, the jet itself is going to cause so much commotion. They have to invest this money.
You never know. The opposition might even take the jet and see what technology they use, and maybe
It's a threat in that sense.
Yeah, to implement into their own.
Yeah, they'll be like, "Oh, this is sick. We need some of that.
Yeah,
Give it to our scientists and our people, and they'll clone it."
Yeah.
Just 44 minutes later, at 6:07 p.m. local time, a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone from Chabeli Airfield in Djibouti was conducting a routine reconnaissance flight about 50 miles northeast of Hodeidah. The drone was monitoring Houthi supply convoys as they reinforced enemy positions near the town when Houthi gunners, frustrated at not being able to shoot down the F-16, decided to try their luck again. Although less advanced than the F-16, its Pandora missile warning system detected another Houthi SA-6 launch.
They were on it.
Within 0.8 seconds of detection, the Reaper ordered its AN/ALE-47 dispenser to launch countermeasures as the drone climbed above 15,000 feet to keep all the incoming missiles out of the drone's 30-degree cutouts directly below the aircraft's horizon. As the Reaper continued to climb, its AN/ALE countermeasure system launched 8 flares in 4 seconds. This created a 300-square-meter chaff cloud to confuse the incoming missiles. However, this system is not unlimited. With a max load of 60 MJU-60B flares and 120 RR-180 chaff bundles, this is sufficient for 12 engagements per sortie. However, once the Reaper expends 75% of this inventory, it has to abort the mission and return to base. How the operator determines whether to use these countermeasures or not is with the help of its ALR-69 radar warning receiver. The ALR-69 radar warning receiver can monitor frequencies from 0.5 to 20 gigahertz. This enables it to detect SA-6 radar emissions at around 200 kilometers within 1 degree of azimuth accuracy. With this enabled, the Reaper can respond to Houthi missile launches within 2 seconds. Because of this, the drone operators are able to deploy enough countermeasures in time to avoid a direct hit. But the Reaper didn't make it through unscathed.
Was it damaged?
After landing back at the base, maintainers discovered that several of the SA-6's 12,000 steel pellets had punctured its right wing. Luckily, the drone was able to fly again shortly thereafter.
Quick repair, they're done.
Although these missile launches may seem routine, they were anything but. This strike was the first time the Houthis have shot at a manned aircraft in this conflict. How the U.S. would respond to this unprovoked attack has set new precedent in this ever-intensifying conflict. In the immediate aftermath of these attacks, both U.S. Central Command and the White House were shocked by the brazen daylight attack on U.S. forces. President Trump...
The situation with this now, it puts Trump in a position where he needs to go hard, because he don't want this to ever happen again, especially if it was unprovoked. So in his head, he's thinking, I need to make sure these are never consider doing anything like that again. So he's going to do a madness. Like, he's going to go bombs out, I'll be real.
Trump soon decided that nothing less than an immediate, devastating response was warranted. Within 8 hours of the attack, the guided missile destroyer, the USS Spruance, received orders to steam closer to the Yemeni coast. Once in its launch box, the crew received encrypted launch orders from Central Command to strike. While normally Tomahawk missiles would be used for this, the Navy opted for a rather creative measure. Every DDG carries a mixed loadout of Tomahawks, SM-2s, ESSMs, anti-submarine rockets, and SM-6 missiles inside their VLS
That's a
cells.
fully loaded
BMD-capable
boat.
ships also carry SM-3s. The reason for this party mix of missiles is so a surface ship can conduct offensive and defensive strikes against a variety of threats. So why the Navy chose the SM-6 is interesting because it sends a very clear message. The SM-6 is one of the Navy's most advanced air defense missiles, second only to the SM-3. Destroyers typically preserve these missiles for the most dangerous threats, since the missile can deliver a 1,500-kilogram explosive warhead at an impressive 3.5 times the speed of sound. But while this was designed to be an air defense missile, in recent years, the Navy has repurposed it to also be a ground strike missile. While the Tomahawk has a longer range than the SM-6 at around 1,500 miles, the SM-6 is much faster. With that greater speed, it's much harder to shoot down and is an essential stopgap until the Navy strike missile comes fully online. Because of that, the Navy modified the SM-6 to operate in surface mode as well. However, despite having this capability for years, the Navy hasn't publicly fired one of these missiles this way until now.
So it's the first time they're using that missile specifically for offense rather than defense, because it's a defense missile. That's gonna have from the numbers, that's a big impact missile, man. Not gonna lie. But if it was unprovoked and it was a terrorist attack, it's warranted. Terrorists are there to cause destruction, unfortunately.
While the Navy chose the SM-6 for this is because the target they were going after was moving. According to satellite imagery, the SA-6 launcher and its accompanying IS-91 radar were still in Hodeidah. But with the launcher having a top speed of around 34 miles per hour, the launcher could be hundreds of miles away by the time the order came to strike. This meant time was of the essence, and there wasn't a second to spare. After getting the firing order from CENTCOM, the Spruance's crew made best speed for the launch basket in the southern Red Sea. As this was going on, the combat watchstanders had less than 30 minutes to create, route, and approve a firing plan. That's because a missile doesn't just fly in a straight line. That would be incredibly easy to shoot down. Rather, the crew must prepare sometimes up to dozens of waypoints to get the missile to the first pre-planned waypoint.
That's quite mad.
Once it reaches there, the classified mission library takes over and sends the missile careening towards its target. With a flash of light,
I thought when a missile shot, just in general, it just goes from A to B. So from the sounds of it, they got a team that says it needs to go this way, then this, like, it's controlled every step. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, look how much money they're pumping.
I know, but I thought it's just like, I don't know, they just do it one time and they press a button and it goes. I don't think they're
so.
Strategically then has to get approved as well. Like, there's quite a process.
Yeah, I mean, there would be.
Well, I thought it was just spam, red button, done.
Maybe it was
out of
maybe
VLS
once
cells
upon
at
a time.
approximately 3:45 a.m. local time. With just several hundred miles to go, it would take roughly 6 minutes before the SM-6s reach their target. Although the Houthis have built up a robust air defense network, this meant nothing for the SM-6 as it glided effortlessly before smashing into the SA-6 launcher.
Oh my god.
In the aftermath of the attack, signals collection intercepts confirmed the site's destruction along with the elimination of 8 Houthi operators. But the US was far from being done. From 2014 to 2015, the Houthis captured 12 to 15 SA-6 launchers from the Yemeni government. Over the past decade, Iran has substantially assisted them in improving their radars and getting modern seekers installed on the missiles. Because of this, the Houthis now have an extensive stockpile of ordnance they have shown a willingness to use against US aircraft. This could not stand.
So the terrorists are taking military equipment of their own government, like they're stealing it and forcing, like they're taking it and then they're using it against the US as well. That's quite mad. Imagine having that much power as a terrorist group. You could overthrow some of your government.
The thing is, were the Houthis actually a terrorist group?
Well, Yemen sounds like, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like Yemen as a country is against them. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Comment below if that's the case or not the case, because I'm curious. Not because I know with ISIS it's different. I don't know much about Houthis. This is the first time I've been hearing about them, if I'm honest.
After the February 20th strike that got revenge against the individual launcher, the Navy figured it was time to give the Houthis a permanent reminder of why not to attack U.S. aircraft. Beginning at 6 p.m. local time, the first of 4 waves of F-18s took off from the deck of the Harry S. Truman. And these aircraft were armed with something much more powerful than normal. While a typical strike mission like this would call for a 2,000-pound JDAM or bunker buster, the Navy went hog wild on this one. The F-18s that took off that night were armed with AGM-154 joint standoff weapons. The AGM-154 JSOW is a long-range air-to-surface weapon that can reach 117 to 130 kilometers if launched at high altitudes. With either a warhead carrying 145 bomblets or 192 pounds of explosives, this GPS-guided weapon is a long arm of the law in this region. And that is exactly what it was that night. Between 6 p.m. and 11:30 that night, wave after wave of F-18s made attack runs on storage bunkers near Sana'a.
That's a lot of damage, man.
And if that wasn't enough, the guided missile destroyer, the USS Gravely, fired 6 Tomahawk missiles at the smoldering rubble after it was all done. All told, the U.S. destroyed 14 Kaher M2 ballistic missiles, 3 more SA-6 launchers, and 23 various other anti-ship cruise missiles. But while this strike severely degraded the Houthis' ability to launch attacks on air and ground targets, this operation has not destroyed all of their arsenal. That will be left for another day's fight.
Damn.
Do you think the U.S. could be doing more to destroy the Houthis' ability to wage war? Bye for now.
The tough part is a terrorist group, as ISIS is done, which came out later, is they're very good at kind of disguising within the country. So it's very hard to tell.
Them.
And unfortunately, for that reason, a lot of innocent people get caught in the crossfire, unfortunately, but I reckon as is probably the smartest way for terrorists to operate. Because if they just had their own base, like this is our terrorist house, for example, they'll get blown up and done and threats over. Like being in their shoes, and they're trying to do what they're trying to do, the smartest move for them is to be within the innocent civilians, because then they'll survive. The only way to get rid of them really is a lot of innocent people will go, but it's very sick to think that that's the mindset, knowing that innocent lives who are not involved and don't want any part of it, unfortunately, is going to be hitting the crossfire. It's really messed up. But yeah, that's the video, guys. Thanks so much for recommending the video. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got more content coming out soon. Any last words?